But the thing is that he could never communicate with people. So nobody knew what the heck he was talking about, muffled and stuff like that. So I thought it was apt as somebody in a space, almost like an outsider,
right,
trying to implement some futuristic stuff. This is called experimentation, people, and people just not getting it. And it resonated. And plus, it's just easier to draw than like faces and stuff. You just draw a spaceman.
Welcome to No Hacks Show, a weekly podcast where I search the internet for smart people and then get them to talk to you about better online experiences. My guest today is the author of the ongoing CRO Tales comic series on LinkedIn, co-host of the Treachery of Data YouTube series together with Matt Beischel, and a CRO consultant with 20 years of experience in UX design, development, data, and optimization. 20 years, 20. That is very impressive. Iqbal Ali, welcome to No Hacks Show.
You're making me look old, one, and also you said smart, which I'm not. So yeah,
come on.
1 out of 2 is not bad.
Come on, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast and be able to talk to you. So,
thanks for having me.
In addition to everything I just mentioned, you're also a self-published comics creator. Your LinkedIn bio says this is a side hustle. So, how did you start doing comics?
Good question. I kind of started when I was kind of like really pissed off at work.
Amazing. I love it already.
You know what? Like I really want to do comic book stuff, and I've always wanted to do comic book stuff. So then I was thinking, like, one of the things I was learning through at work is like experimentation processes. So I thought, hey, can I just apply a process to create comic books? And it turned out I could. And the first one was shit, and then you just kind of like, after you do it a few times, you just get better. I don't know if I'm particularly good now, but I've got to a stage where I've got a process in place, and I'm kind of just going through the process and publishing it, and also meeting with people at Comic-Con and stuff. So it's good fun.
I think you're pretty good. I'll just say that. Oh. So, what was the first comic book that you completed? Like, what was the subject?
So the first book I've completed was a book called Strange Skies. Okay. So it was about a plane going through a wormhole and ending up in strange skies, and everybody on board is like, freaking out, like, what the heck's going on? So that was the first book, and the reason why going back to processes, the reason why I chose that is because fixed location, it allowed me to really reduce the variables and stuff that I had to draw, because I was basically having to draw a lot of this stuff, and I was utilizing a lot of 3D, and then that kind of reduces the cost a lot more. So yeah, that was the first book that I wrote, and then from there I just kind of iterated and created more after that.
That is so amazing. And yeah, the fixed location, I would never even consider something like that, but it's so cool. And when was that? When was the first one?
That was probably 2012.
2012. Okay, 11 years of experience creating comic books.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I've got like over 10 books now, 11, 12. I don't know, I've lost count. Some of the stuff I pull because I don't like this, so I just kind of pull it off for sale.
Right.
But yeah, I've got a lot of books.
And before I hit record, we talked about Experimentation Elite, which is an incredible conference. And you just mentioned Comic-Con. Can you draw any parallels between an event like Experimentation Elite and something like Comic-Con?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's kind of like with Experimentation Elite, one of the key things is you go there and there's people that you've followed for ages, and people who follow you, and people you've seen on LinkedIn space. And then you get to meet them in person, and then you start to talk about very, very in-depth kind of experimentation stuff, and you just nerd out, and you're just in experimentation sort of nerd zone for like the whole day. MCM is very, very similar. So you have like, I'm not big on social with Instagram and stuff, but there's a few people that I do connect with, and being able to meet up with them, and meeting up with like people who've been reading the books over a period of years, and new people coming in, fans and stuff like that. It's kind of nerding out in a very, very different, specific way. And yeah, it's just a very different way of kind of, either way you're networking.
Right.
But the networking is slightly different, but kind of the same at the same time. So
must be a very rewarding experience to go to a Comic-Con, like, and as an author specifically, right?
it's pretty good. Like it can be quite like this is difference between like main difference between Experimentation Elite and Comic-Con, because even though Comic-Con is kind of, you can do some networking, you're so on talking to people all the time. You're pitching the book, so you're constantly pitching. There's people coming around, and you can kind of like reading people, kind of like go, okay, I'm gonna adapt my pitch for you this way and stuff like that. You have some really off-key conversations with people, like about colonialism, in one of the subjects of my comic books, latest comic book. But yeah, and so you get like all sorts of, you get to meet all sorts of people from all sorts of different walks of life who have something in common, which is probably the subject matter of your comic book and stuff. So yeah, I get a ton of stuff.
That's pretty amazing. And what you described as experimentation experience, there's a CRO Tales comic for that, right?
Yeah.
Look at us, like, patting on the back and all that stuff. So let's talk about CRO Tales for a little bit. The first question I want to ask is, what's up with the Space Dude? And I see you calling Space Dude in one of the editions. So why is he a Space Dude?
So the genesis of that was it was going to be a designer. So, and the designer was kind of like this space dude alien. He's just way out there. He has a guitar. Sorry if there's a noisy in the background. It's just,
I think it's fine. It's good enough. Don't worry.
So, and he had original had a guitar and stuff like that. But the thing is that he could never communicate with people, so nobody knew what the heck he was talking about, muffled and stuff like that. So I thought he was when sort of like going with CRO Tales, I thought it was kind of apt, kind of somebody in a space, almost like an outsider,
right,
trying to implement some futuristic stuff. Like, this is called experimentation, people, and people just not getting it. And it kind of, I don't know, it kind of resonated. And plus, it's just easier to draw than like faces and stuff. You just draw a spaceman.
That's another optimization experimentation aided experience to help you do that. So CRO Tales hashtag, obviously on LinkedIn, is the best way to find, but also your website, iqbala.com, right? Is where most of, or all of the editions can be, and the other comic books. What's the feedback you get from optimization people for CRO Tales?
It's mostly people like it, and it's kind of strange for me when I go out and kind of meet with people that I thought I'm meeting for the first time, but they just kind of say, "Oh, CRO Tales, yeah, I know you," and it's kind of like, what the heck is going on here? It's
that
like,
is super cool.
so it's kind of odd, but the reception has been really good. There's certain ones resonate differently with certain people, and they kind of, when I'm speaking to people, they mention a different CRO tale, say, "Oh yeah, this was my favorite," and it's always something different. But
can I say what my favorite was? The one where they say, "That's our 10th CRO consultant this month," or whatever the text was. Man, that's funny and hurtful at the same time for all the right reasons, and I think it's amazing. And what you're doing, and especially like you said, you go to a conference and you're the CRO Tales guy. Oh my God, I love that. That is there a better icebreaker than that? Than connecting over something?
Yeah, and also like I found, because I had not been able to get into LinkedIn for a really long time. And I think speaking to a lot of people, a lot of people feel the same way. It's finding their in to, how do I share something? What do I share? Like, what do I talk about? It just feels really unnatural. Whereas something like this is kind of like a little bit of a distance. So it feels fine.
You're actually, so you're not a fan of the LinkedIn broetry, as I see it called lately, where everything is peachy and everything is perfect. Okay, yeah. For me, that in was this podcast, really. And this is when I started. I've been in that same boat for the longest time. Like, why would anyone care about anything I have to say? But maybe if I get other people to say something, it's going to make more sense. But once you get started, LinkedIn is pretty cool. I'm going to die on that hill. There's people who think it's not. I mean, there's a LinkedIn Lunatics subreddit that is very popular. I'm dying on that hill that LinkedIn is an awesome place if you just know where to be and who to hang with. So
and also how to communicate,
and
right?
how to communicate, exactly.
If you're there to, because a lot of people think LinkedIn is their magic portal to get clients. That's not what it is, really.
I mean, just be useful and be nice. That's what I mean. Last month I've had conversations with. I'm old enough to say juniors compared to me. And that's what I tell them. Just be nice to people and be the problem solver. And you don't need to sell anything. The people will buy naturally if you're that kind of person. People will want to hire you, work with you, all that. Comic books, that's storytelling. And there's also storytelling with data. And when you mentioned that when we were preparing for the episode, I knew this is what I wanted to talk about. Like 6-7 years ago, I had a data visualization website that I don't know why I pulled it off. It was, I think it was called ballsandnumbers.com. It's statistics, so sports statistics, and just analyzing mostly basketball data, because I was so deep into D3JS and all that stuff at the time. I was really hardcore with it. So connect the dots for me, please, from going from comic books to data storytelling in CRO specifically.
Yeah, like for the longest time, I can kind of see what I was getting from writing comics and writing stories specifically, but I couldn't put a tag in it. I couldn't get it. But when I started to did this project specifically around data visualization, and I kind of understood like exactly how the comic stuff and storytelling was helping me. For instance, with storytelling, you've got like one of my favorite books in storytelling is one of the most influential books for me, is a book called Dramatica.
Mm-hmm.
It's a theory of story, and it basically equates a story mind to as a story is analogous to a mind trying to solve an inequity or a problem. And when you think of it like that, you can kind of apply it to a lot more things. So one of the things that they kind of mention, and one of the things that's kind of key point with storytelling, is you have a mode of expression. So, and your mode of expression, it can either be informational, like you just like documentary style, like you're just like, if you're thinking about it from a data visualization perspective, you're just presenting all of the information for somebody to explore and be able to look at in different ways and stuff like that. So just much more informational, sort of, here's the way things are. No subjective opinion, very, very objective. And then the other three are kind of like explanatory, like how-to graphic, a how-to guide, infographic, or something like that. Now you got stuff like purely entertainment. So like something inspirational, like there's a lot of infographics and stuff like that. There's a book, Information is Beautiful, which just
it's in the other amazing room. I'm not going to get up and get it and show it to you, but yes, it's an amazing book.
Such an amazing book. And that is kind of, it falls into like the main mode of expression there is entertainment. You kind of get a lot out of the beauty of all of the pieces. And then the final one, and I think this is the one that most people are actually doing with data visualization, is persuasive. And that falls into the category of propaganda. And that is where you have something that you want to communicate, like persuade or make somebody commit to a particular decision or something like that. And depending on what mode of expression you have, you're gonna approach the story, what you want to display in a very, very, very different way. So, one of the things that I find really sort of off-putting is when people present stuff as if it were, this is informational, but it's not. It's propaganda. It's persuasive. But just being clear about it means you can really lean heavily into it and it's fine. You're just kind of saying, here, you don't need to look at it in all those different dimensions. I've done all of that work for you. This is a key thing that I want you to take away from this information. And when you look at it like that, it's kind of, it kind of makes sense. A lot of our presentations and stuff like that are persuasive, sort of data visualization.
And hey, there are very few things politicians like more than cherry-picked statistics. So yeah, absolutely. Like you can make anything a lie if you show the wrong numbers. Like they can be correct numbers, but they can be the wrong numbers to display, and it can still be a very propaganda, basically. Like that's what it is. So you work as a freelance CRO consultant these days, and for a while now. How do you use this, like storytelling and data, when you communicate your CRO findings with your clients, shareholders, whoever it is?
So I'll be honest, like it's slowly starting to shift, like the kind of stuff that I've been doing. Like there's certain projects I was doing specifically to do with data visualization. And with those, it's kind of, for instance, with one of the things about experimentation presentations and stuff is how to visualize uncertainty, how to communicate certainty level, uncertainty level. And it so happens there's a field of study called probabilistic grammar of graphics, which is just kind of catered to that sort of thing, the grammar of graphics, about visualizing uncertainty or certainty. And so with that sort of thing in mind, that once you discover about that, you can kind of do some more research into it, look up studies and stuff. And one of the things that I found was frequency framing versus probabilistic framing. So this is one of the things that we do as CRO people is we say 90% significance or 90% probability or whatever, but which is a probabilistic way of communicating. But in actual fact, most people, and there's some studies to back this up, don't understand probabilistic framing as much as frequency framing, which is the opposite, which is like 1 out of 10. The chance of rain is 2 days out of 10 days is going to rain or whatever.
Right.
And so communicating that way is a bit, I've seen it as a little bit more clearer.
So you think simplifying the way you communicate is usually, I'm not going to say always, but usually it is the way to go, right? Yeah. Just simplifying and just kind of, again, just understanding the audience. So your audience are people who are not scientists. So then kind of finding the easiest way to communicate and not focus so heavily on the certainty. Because the good thing about like frequency framing is, like 3 blobs out of 5 blobs or something like that. Very, very easy to put in and kind of very easy to reference and stuff. Whereas the percentages and stuff like it, it's a lot of words and kind of pollutes stuff a little bit. People don't really care about the certainty. They just want to know, but they don't really want to know. Right.
If you see what I mean.
I got it.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And one last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the YouTube series that you have with Matt, Treachery of Data. I'm not a native English speaker, so I had to Google Treachery before this episode. Now I know what it means. Thank you. Tell me about that. Like, what exactly do you cover in I guess YouTube podcast, video podcast?
Yeah, so similar to you, I think you mentioned earlier. During the lockdown, we were looking for. We started off going to these conversion roundtable, which we have every Friday, and then which we just have a sit around chat and stuff. And then we thought, why don't we do like a companion podcast summarizing, like we get people coming on from all sorts of sort of different backgrounds and stuff, and we cover very different topics and interesting stuff that we discuss. And I often think like it'd be useful to share some of this information to people in the broader community, like a specific topic that we were discussing that we thought was interesting. So we started doing that. Kind of stopped for a while because everyone's kind of busy, but yeah, and we kind of cover all sorts of like specific topics. Like last one we did was a meta-analysis, and yeah. So we just kind of like pick a topic, discuss it, and then just throw it out there for everyone to.
I think it's really cool, and your guests are, well, some of my favorite people online. Like you had Shiva, you had Tracy. Like those are incredible people that I really love that were on this podcast as well. More obviously, not just them. But tell me about CRO Roundtable. Is that online or is that in person?
That's online.
Okay.
So every Friday, 4 p.m. GMT, as we are in London. And it's just a Zoom chat. So and anybody can join. And we often get like all sorts of really interesting people coming on with an interesting topic they want to discuss, an interesting problem that they have at work. And yeah, we just get into it with, like nothing's recorded. So everyone can be really, really honest.
That's super cool. And I mean, I'll join soon. I didn't even know the time. I didn't even know if it was, I thought it was in person. Yeah. But you'll see me there soon. You'll see me there. We talked about this in preparation, like before I hit record. Like there's a number of people in optimization industry that are very visible, and it's a finite number of people. Yeah. And like I told you, like they're super amazing. I haven't had a bad experience. They're great, incredible people. Everyone I talk to, especially on this podcast, but not just the podcast. And then there's the thousands of people who are sort of invisible and not really vocal for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter why, but what can we, and I guess we're the ones who speak into the microphone. So I guess what can we do to get more people to become more public?
I think it's interesting. I was speaking to David Sanchez, the real earlier, and he, at the last Experimentation Elite, it was his idea for us to each draw ourselves and put it together and post it. And he was really didn't want to post it, and I had to just push him to say, look, just post it, man. Yeah, I'm not going to post it. You post it. It's your thing. So I think just kind of saying that it's okay to post stuff, and I think we as a community can get a little bit too hung up about statistics and stuff and shaming about that sort of stuff, and just kind of be a little bit more supportive, and also just to have ourselves write a bit more different, varied kind of ways of communicating. Like for instance, the CRO Tales is kind of it's a very different way of kind of communicating. It means that you don't have to spout words about saying, hey, this is what I think about this. Right. It's like the comic does it for me, right? So there's different ways of communicating what it is that you want to communicate, and just be able to help people figure out what is it that they want to say. And then that's kind of like their voice, right? So.
Right. And also to people who are thinking about becoming more vocal, I think that's a good way to put it. Just DM someone that you've been following and just tell them, hey, I like this. I would like to do the same thing you're doing. If that person says, go to hell, I don't want to talk to you, they're the asshole. It's not you. Yeah. And just keep asking. And I guarantee you that's not going to happen, by the way. Yeah. But CRO Roundtable, that's tomorrow. We're recording this on a Thursday. So I'll do my best to be there. Yeah. So let me just recap everything you do online, because I thought I had too many projects. No, you win. CRO Tales, the comic book series, The Space Dude, which is absolutely amazing. Treachery of Data, CRO Roundtable, Iqbal on LinkedIn is a great follow as well. What else? Is there anything else you're doing?
So I do the ongoing comic book series and long form comics. I'm building an AI tool. So
everyone is.
Yeah. This is to text mine data. Is kind of going all right.
Okay.
So user reviews and kind of making sense of that. So kind of putting it into a much bigger process. And obviously my day job as well, which is kind of, experimentation co-pilot, as I call it, for experimentation teams, just training people, coaching, kind of supporting experimentation programs.
That all sounds so amazing. So Iqbal, I want to thank you. This was a great conversation. I learned a lot of things that I had no idea about today, and that's always a nice experience. Thank you for being on the podcast. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And to everyone listening to this episode, please consider rating, reviewing, sharing, whatever you do with the podcast. And I will talk to you next week.